All right, everyone, let's dive into this AI and radiomic stuff. Specifically, we're looking at Lecture 10 from your AI in Radiomics course.
This lecture is all about making AI models more accurate, which, has some pretty big real-world implications, especially in healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about AI actually helping doctors make diagnoses. It's not just sci-fi anymore.
Right. And it's not just about the diagnosis itself. It's also about understanding how the AI got there.
Yeah.
Like having a doctor who can explain their reasoning every step of the way.
Okay, so the lecture lays out 6 key steps in this process, right? Starting with, well, the images themselves. X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, all that.
Exactly. Got to have the raw materials. Then you've got segmentation. That's where we zero in on the areas of interest. Like if there's a suspicious spot on a lung, that's what we'd segment.
So we're basically telling the AI, hey, focus on this part.
Yeah, like giving it the most important clues. And from those regions, we extract features, like analyzing the color, shape, the texture of that spot, kind of like a detective looking for specific details.
So it's not just a picture, it's a whole set of data points about that picture.
Exactly. And then comes preprocessing. That's where we clean up the data, pick out the most relevant features so we don't overwhelm the AI.
Makes sense. We don't want to give it too much to process at once.
Right. And finally, we get to the really cool part, the heart of it all, developing the AI model itself. This is where the AI actually learns to recognize patterns, make predictions based on what we've fed it.
But just like we wouldn't trust a detective without, seeing them in action, we have to test this AI model.
Absolutely. We train it, validate it, make sure it's performing well. And then comes the part that I still find kind of mind-blowing, explainability.
Explainability. So we don't just want the AI to work. We want to understand why it's making the decisions it is.
Exactly. It's not a black box. We can actually see the reasoning behind its conclusions, which, helps us trust its predictions even more.
That's huge. So we've got these amazing AI models, but the lecture also talks about this thing called imbalanced datasets, right?
Yeah, it's a big one. Think of it like a basketball team where you have like one superstar player and the rest have never even touched a basketball.
Okay, I get it. One super strong data point is going to skew the results.
Exactly. It's like that uneven basketball team. The AI's training gets thrown off if we have way more examples of one type of a condition than another.
So how do we fix that? The lecture mentions data balancing. Is that like cloning the superstar players to make the teams more even?
You got it. That's oversampling. Like random oversampling just duplicates examples from the minority class.
But wouldn't that just make the AI fixate on those repeated examples?
It could, yeah. Just like cloning players wouldn't create a very diverse team. Simple duplication can cause problems.
Okay, so what about undersampling? Is that like benching some of the superstar players to make things fairer?
Kind of. Undersampling shrinks the majority class. Like random undersampling just randomly removes examples.
But isn't that risky? Like, what if we lose important information?
You're right, it can be. That's why we have techniques like cluster centroids. They use algorithms to shrink the majority class while keeping its overall characteristics intact.
So it's a more strategic way of reducing the data, right? Not just random cuts.
Exactly. But there's still ways to minimize information loss even further. Like one method called NearMiss picks majority class examples that are most similar to the minority ones.
So we're keeping the most relevant players on the field even if we have to bench a few stars.
You got it. And sometimes we combine oversampling and undersampling. Think of it like cloning some players, benching others, really fine-tuning that team composition.
A mix of strategies for the best outcome.
Right. One powerful oversampling technique is SMD. That's synthetic minority oversampling technique. It actually creates new examples of the minority class instead of just copying existing ones.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like the AI is inventing new players to make the game more balanced and interesting.
And it helps prevent the AI from getting too fixated on those repeated examples, leading to more robust results.
So all this data balancing is setting the stage for the AI to learn. But how do we make sure it actually learns effectively?
That's where hyperparameter optimization comes in. Think of hyperparameters like the settings on a radio. You need to adjust those knobs just right to get the clearest signal.
Okay, so it's fine-tuning the AI's learning process, not just giving it good data, but making sure it's using that data in the best way possible.
Exactly. And there are tons of techniques for this, like grid search. That one tries every single combination of hyperparameters.
Sounds thorough, but also like it could take forever. Is there a faster way?
Oh, there are definitely faster methods. Random search, for example, randomly samples from the hyperparameter space.
So it's a bit more like spinning the radio dial and hoping to land on a good station. A bit of luck involved.
Haha, yeah. But there are more strategic approaches too, like Bayesian optimization. It actually learns which hyperparameter combinations are most likely to give good results.
So it's more like having a map of all the radio stations and using it to find your favorites. Much more efficient.
Right. And there are even more advanced techniques, like gradient-based optimization and evolutionary algorithms.
Evolutionary algorithms, that sounds really cool, like survival of the fittest for hyperparameters.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But those advanced methods can be pretty computationally intensive. The lecture highlights this framework called Optuna. It's known for being user-friendly and efficient.
So Optuna helps us find the best settings without all the manual tweaking, like a radio that tunes itself.
Exactly. And it uses techniques like Bayesian optimization to do it efficiently.
Awesome. But how do we actually use Optuna to build an AI system? Like, what are the steps involved?
Well, first, you load your data set, split it into training and testing sets. Then you got to define the hyperparameter space you want Optuna to explore. That's like setting boundaries for its search.
So we're giving it some guidelines, but letting it do its thing within those guidelines.
Yeah. Then you create this thing called the objective function. It tells Optuna what it's aiming for, like maximizing accuracy or some other performance metric.
So Optuna knows its goal. Then what?
Well, it suggests a set of hyperparameters, and you use those to train and evaluate your model. Then you feed the performance score back to Optuna, and it uses that to update its understanding of which hyperparameters are looking good.
It's like an ongoing conversation. Optuna suggests, the model tries, and they learn from each other.
Exactly. This goes on until Optuna finds the best configuration, the one that gives the highest performance.
This is fascinating. So the lecture goes on to show how they used Optuna to optimize all sorts of features extracted from these medical images. Things like first-order features, GLCM, GLRLM, and shape features. What are those and why do they matter?
Those features describe different aspects of the images, giving the AI a more complete picture. Like first-order features capture basic statistics about the intensity of the pixels.
So it's like getting a sense of the overall brightness and contrast of the image.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Then you've got GLCM, which stands for Gray Level Co-occurrence Matrix. It's all about texture, like how often different shades of gray appear next to each other.
So is it telling us if the image is smooth or rough?
Exactly. That can be super important for distinguishing between different types of tissues.
Interesting. And what about GLRLM?
GLRLM, or Gray Level Run Length Matrix, is also about texture, but it focuses on runs of consecutive pixels with the same gray level. Tells us about the size and direction of these runs.
Okay, so that's even more detailed information about the patterns within the image. And lastly, shape features. Those are pretty self-explanatory, right?
Yeah, pretty much. They describe the shape of the region we're analyzing, like its area, perimeter, circularity.
So we have all these different features giving the AI all this information, and the lecture shows how they used Optuna to optimize each of them individually or even in combination.
It's amazing how much control we have over this whole process.
Yeah, this is really cool stuff. It's incredible how much thought and effort goes into preparing the data and fine-tuning the AI model before we even get to the actual analysis.
It's a lot of work, but it's absolutely crucial if we want to build AI systems that are accurate, reliable, and ultimately beneficial for patients.
Absolutely. We're talking about potentially life-saving technology here. We can't afford to cut corners.
You got it. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've looked at the entire radiomics workflow, from acquiring images to extracting features and developing AI models. We've talked about the challenges of imbalanced data sets and how to overcome them. And we've even delved into the world of hyperparameter optimization, seeing how Optuna can help us unlock the full potential of our AI models.
This is just the beginning, though, right? There's so much more to explore.
Absolutely. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll take a look at some real-world applications of this technology. We'll see how AI is already making a tangible difference in medical image analysis and explore its potential to revolutionize healthcare in the years to come.
It sounds like things are about to get even more exciting. I can't wait.
All right, so we spent the first part talking about optimizing those AI models, but let's see how this stuff actually plays out in the real world, right?
Yeah, let's get to the good stuff. Like, how is AI already impacting patient care?
Well, the lecture notes mentioned this one study where they used Optuna to predict survival rates for patients with glioblastoma.
Glioblastoma, that's a really aggressive brain cancer, right?
It is, yeah. And they were able to significantly improve the accuracy of their predictions by using Optuna to optimize a random forest model.
So wait, this means doctors could actually use AI to get a much clearer picture of a patient's prognosis.
Exactly. It's not just relying on traditional methods anymore. AI can provide a much more nuanced understanding.
That's huge. And it sounds like it's not just limited to brain cancer either.
Oh, definitely not.
Mm,
They also used Optuna to predict how lung cancer patients would respond to radiotherapy.
wow. So AI could help determine which patients are most likely to benefit from a specific treatment. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's like personalized medicine taken to a whole new level.
It's mind-blowing to think about the possibilities. But, with all this power comes responsibility, right?
Oh, absolutely. The lecture emphasized that big time, especially when we're talking about healthcare. We have to make sure AI is developed and used ethically.
So how do we do that? What are the safeguards?
Well, transparency is a big one. We need to understand how these AI models are actually making their decisions. And we've got to be super careful about bias, making sure the data and the algorithms are fair, so AI benefits everyone equally.
Yeah, that makes sense. AI should be a tool for good, not something that creates more inequality.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of the future, there's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipeline, like deep learning.
Deep learning. I've heard that term thrown around a lot lately. Isn't that what powers self-driving cars and stuff?
It is. And it's being applied to radiomics, too. Researchers are using it to create models that can automatically detect and classify abnormalities in medical images.
So basically, deep learning could help radiologists diagnose diseases even earlier and more accurately.
Exactly. And it's not just about detection. Deep learning can also help predict patient outcomes and tailor treatments based on individual needs.
The possibilities seem almost endless.
And that's not all. There's also this field called radiogenomics.
Genomics, what's that?
Well, it's about combining radiomic data with the genetic information. So instead of just looking at the images, we're also considering a patient's genes to get a more complete picture of their condition.
So it's like personalized medicine, but even more personalized.
You got it. By combining all this information, we can develop treatments that target the specific genetic drivers of a disease.
That's amazing. It really feels like we're on the cusp of a revolution in healthcare.
We are, and all these advancements, they're just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to come.
This has been an incredible discussion so far. We've gone from the basics of radiomics to the latest breakthroughs in AI. It's been quite a journey.
It has. We've seen how AI is already making a difference in medical image analysis and explored its potential to completely change the way we approach healthcare in the future.
It's clear that this field is full of possibilities, but like you said earlier, we need to be cautious and thoughtful about how we develop and use this technology.
Absolutely. Ethical considerations are paramount. We need to make sure AI in radiomics is used responsibly for the benefit of all patients.
Well said. So, before we wrap up, let's take a moment to recap what we've learned so far. We started by going over the radiomics workflow, right? From image acquisition to feature extraction and model development.
Yeah, and then we talked about imbalanced datasets and those clever techniques like oversampling and undersampling to address that problem.
We also dove into the world of hyperparameter optimization and how Optuna can be such a powerful tool for fine-tuning AI models.
And of course, we couldn't forget those real-world applications. AI is already helping predict patient outcomes and tailor treatments to individual needs. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it really is. And we even got a glimpse into the future with deep learning and radiogenomics. It feels like we're just scratching the surface of what AI can do in healthcare.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so much more to discover, and I'm sure our listeners eager to hear what's next.
Well, they're in for a treat, because in the final part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring even more cutting-edge advancements that are pushing the boundaries of AI in radiomics. Buckle up. All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into AI and radiomics. I'm still processing everything we've covered so far, optimizing AI models, predicting patient outcomes, personalized treatments. It's like we've stepped into the future of healthcare. But the lecture notes hinted that there's even more groundbreaking stuff coming up. What else is out there?
Well, one thing that researchers are tackling is data privacy. Medical data is super sensitive. Sharing it across institutions could be a huge headache, logistically and ethically.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how do we solve that? The lecture mentioned something called federated learning.
Federated learning is pretty cool. It's like instead of moving the data to a central location, the AI model itself travels to the data.
Wait, so the AI goes to the data, not the other way around.
Yep. It learns from the data at its source and then sends back its updated knowledge without ever, actually accessing the patient's private information.
So it's like Imagine a team of doctors going to different hospitals, learning from each patient's case without actually seeing their records.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. They gather insights through all these different places and then combine their knowledge without ever compromising patient privacy.
That's incredible. It solves a massive problem in medical research, right? We can use all this data without putting anyone's privacy at risk. What other cool advancements are in the works?
Another thing that's getting a lot of attention is explainable AI, or XAI. We talked about understanding why AI makes certain decisions. Well, XAI takes it a step further.
How so?
It provides explanations that are easy for humans to understand, like visuals and interpretations that make sense to us.
Oh, okay. So it's like the AI is not just giving us an answer, it's showing its work. Like, here's the evidence, here's how I arrived at this conclusion.
Exactly. And that transparency is super important for building trust, especially in healthcare, where the stakes are so high.
Yeah, you really want to be able to understand the AI's reasoning before making any big decisions based on its recommendations.
For sure. XAI can help doctors check the AI's findings, see if there are any biases, and just gain a deeper understanding of what the data is telling us.
It sounds like AI is becoming less of a tool and more of a partner in the diagnostic process.
Now, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
But even with all these advances, we can't forget the ethical implications, right?
Right, of course. What are some of the key considerations?
Well, bias is a big one, making sure these systems are fair and don't discriminate against certain groups. And privacy, like we talked about earlier. Accountability is important too, knowing who's responsible when things go wrong.
It's a lot to consider, but it's clear that the potential benefits of AI in healthcare are enormous.
They are. It's a powerful tool with potential to improve so many lives. But we have to use it wisely and responsibly.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. We've gone from the basics of radiomics all the way to the cutting edge of AI research. It's been an amazing journey.
Yeah, we've covered so much. From data balancing and hyperparameter optimization to federated learning and explainable AI, it's incredible to see how far this field has come.
To our listener, I hope this deep dive has sparked your interest in AI and its potential in healthcare. It's a rapidly evolving field, and there's so much more to learn and explore.
And it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the ethical considerations, the impact on patients, and the future of healthcare as a whole. It's an exciting time to be involved in this field.
That's a great point. As AI continues to evolve, it's up to all of us to stay informed, ask the tough questions, and make sure it's used for good. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into AI in radiomics. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring.